The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
And welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the HighLowSports podcast. We appreciate you all joining us here this Wednesday evening, or NBA Finals Eve to all of those who celebrate, or if you just happen to catch us on one of your favorite podcasting apps later on in the week as well. As you imagined, we're going to be hitting the hardwood a lot today. It is DJ, joined as always by my co-host Kelcey, Kelcey, you've been talking a lot of basketball today, and we're just going to continue to keep on doing it just a little bit more.
Yeah, so much basketball. I forgot what button click. No, but yeah, it's been absolutely fantastic. If you guys missed the Belly Up Super Show earlier, the preview NBA Finals preview, had a fantastic group there. We had some guys over from the Sideline Summit. We had Anthony on last year, if you guys remember, talk Celtics. He was also on the show along with one of his cohorts and Chris. And we also had Subi on as well, one of the fantastic Belly Up team members we have. He was hosting, and Kevin Wilson as well, senior Belly Up writer. So got to talk a lot about some of the matchups. Maybe he didn't go into depth the way me and you can on some of these, just because we didn't have time. So that's what we all have these extra shows for. Is we lead you, we give you the appetizer, and then here we are. We're going to be the main course, maybe even some dessert here in crunch time.
Well, when it comes to food, we've never been shy either way as well, too. So a full platter, a full buffet, everything else you need, definitely in tune. And we got a little bit more basketball to talk about than just the final. So that's going to be, I think, a pretty good way to segment into our first section, also known, of course, as the tip-off. The tip-off, of course, brought to you by SeatGeek. Use code BellyUpSports for $20 off your first order. Go and get yourself some nice seats to whatever sporting event, concert, or whatever endeavor you'd like to go see in person. So starting things off now in the tip-off, well, we'd be remiss not to mention the Eastern Conference Finals that just wrapped up. Is the Heat, after winning 3 in a row, then losing 3 in a row, were able to cap it off with a nearly 30-0 victory, winning by about 20 points in the Eastern Conference Finals as well. Highlighted, of course, by Caleb Martin, another undrafted guy having a fantastic game, Jimmy Butler being Jimmy Butler. And we'd be remiss not to mention Jason Tatum going down with an ankle injury roughly 13 seconds into the game, and kind of hobbled the rest of the way from that one. So with that said, the Heat will advance to the finals. And I'll go and start with you on this one. Just want to get your thoughts. When you think about the Heat versus the Celtics, that Eastern Conference Finals, what are some of the things that stuck out to you on that one as we get ready to head to the NBA Finals?
It's a shame that it went out the way it did. I think it's all fair to say it at maybe hindsight 2020, all that stuff. Anybody who had almost a 20-point victory here in Game 7 for the Heat, you're lying to yourself. Or you're just a Nostradamus that congratulations. But no, let's be real. This game was set to be a all-time great. You have one of the all-time great current Game 7 players in Jason Tatum. I mean, it seems silly to say that because considering he's only been in the league for 7 seasons now, but of his 7 seasons, it's been pretty fantastic, averaging about 80 a game in Game 7. So, it's impressive to see. Unfortunately, goes down with that. And it's not like Gabe Vincent did anything wrong on that. That's just an unfortunate situation where you come down and the guy's on the ground and you land on his leg. Nothing you can do in that situation. Maybe wear higher shoes. I don't know. But, it is a shame. Credit to Jason Tatum for figuring out a way to do it. But I also want to say, shout out to Spoelstra for realizing that was the situation and attacking Jason. He literally attacked him every single possession. I think it was something like 65, 70% of the possessions for the rest of the game. Jason Tatum was involved in some kind of pick and roll action against the Heat in Game 7. It's insane to think about that. You're hobbled. You're dealing with Jimmy going to his right. You have a screener on that same side where your left leg is, where it's already injured. And usually that screener is Bam. And you have to fight through that big body where you're already hampered. It wasn't working. Then you saw it in the fourth. Jason just couldn't even keep up with him as he was trying to slow him down from getting to the bucket. Jimmy hit a hesitation move multiple times and just dribbled right past him right around the corner. But yeah, look, Jimmy did what Jimmy needed to do on the other side of things for the Heat. Had another fantastic game, where it's remiss to say. And Caleb Martin continues what was a fantastic Eastern Conference Finals. Potentially, I know Jimmy had some great games, but let's be honest, Caleb Martin kind of kept them alive through most of this series in those, especially those losses. I mean, he kept it even close so they even had a chance. If it's not for him, Game 6 doesn't come down to heroics from Derek White. So it's that type of situation where maybe Caleb Martin deserved an Eastern Conference Finals MVP. Potentially. I'm not going to say take it away from Jimmy because that's blasphemy because Jimmy deserves something. But yeah, I'd say Caleb Martin, averaging it was 8 or minimum 18 a game. He gave you minimum 18 a game in the Eastern Conference Finals. Gabe Vincent, absolutely lights out. Gave you 10 a game. Max Strus went AWOL, but that's okay because you had everybody else stepping up. Declan Robinson looked fantastic. Shout out Spoelstra continuing to do what Spoelstra does, which is coach until the lights go out. It's fantastic to watch what he has to do. And even Kyle Lowry got in on the action, and that's playoff Kyle just continues to show up somehow, and it just doesn't make sense. But yeah, no. Shout out to the Heat for a fantastic series. Unfortunate for the Celtics, but it is what it is.
To your point, too, for the Eastern Conference MVP, Eastern Conference Finals MVP, it was 5-4 Jimmy Butler over Caleb Martin. So it's not like the voting was completely like most people would agree with you on that one. It came down to like a 50-50 split, and it was a flip of the coin at that point as well, too. So at that, I think it would not be remiss to say Caleb Martin played good enough to get that Finals Eastern Conference MVP.
Rumor has it that Jimmy let Caleb Martin hold the trophy when they got on the plane heading to Denver. So. Maybe Jimmy even in the back of his head's like, I don't know if I deserve this one, but
either that or he's like, I'm trying to hold that next trophy as well too. You can have this one for now, but I'm going for that next one.
If you believe the reports, he and you can go back and watch the footage. He actually never touched the Eastern Conference Finals trophy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a rumor that someone said they could lip read, and he said, "I'll touch the next one" when they tried to hand it to him. So we'll see. Maybe he's thinking long game, but definitely keep an eye on for that. When I look at this game, looking back, obviously the Jason Tatum injury, how it got out of hand. The one thing that was kind of surprising was Jaylen Brown as a second-team All-NBA player, a top 15, pretty much unanimous top 15 to 20 player in the game. He kind of went a little – I don't want to say he lost his way, but, I mean, you shot 8 of 21, I think it was, and you had 8 turnovers. Dribbling the ball off your leg, bouncing, trying to go behind the back and losing it. Jaylen Brown's held to a high standard as he should be as a second-team All-NBA player, in line for a whole lot of money. And he did not really show up this series at all, and it was culminated kind of in that final. A great first quarter. I think it was like 12 first quarter points. And then the wheels not only came off the tracks, but they set the mountain on fire on their way off as well. It was a very rough performance from Jaylen Brown, who unfortunately, when that's the last memory of this whole offseason, it's going to be even more of they should trade him, which he's unfortunately been the subject of trade rumors the last 3 years, no matter what he does. It's like, they should trade him. They should get Kevin Durant, blah, 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 blah. And you could tell it's starting to work first. Exactly. So it's even more so we have going to the offseason. Should they do a sign and trade? Do they re-sign him and pay him $290 million? Blah, 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 blah. So that's one thing I take away from this is you knew Jason Tatum, as soon as that ankle went 90 degrees, the fact that he got a double-double from him is honestly kind of very impressive and a testament to what he does. They attacked him all night on defense, and even through those middle parts, he did as well as he could. He's still an elite defender when he's healthy. But as you mentioned, too, once your ankle's gone, you can't do it for 4 quarters straight every single possession. Different bodies flying at you while playing offense. So there's only so much he could do. Jaylen Brown wasn't really able to carry. Derek White carried some of that. He actually had a fantastic overall series, but he's not the guy you want to lean on as your number 2 option unless you have Eric Spoelstra coaching. He's an incredible ancillary piece, but he's not someone you need as your second guy. Unfortunately, Jaylen Brown did not have his best series. So we'll be watching that offseason tail with him very closely as well too. Does he end up in trade packages again? Does he demand a trade? Does he just go to free agency? We'll have to wait and see a lot with him. And as for the Heat too, this is very reminiscent of those 2011 Dallas Mavericks. You have your one guy who's clearing ahead like the key catalyst, like a Dirk Nowitzki, a Jimmy Butler, then a whole bunch of dudes. That's just pretty much the only way to describe him as well too. I'm not going to call them undrafted dudes because that's almost insulting at this point. They're guys that were really good in college. They just weren't freakish one-and-done athletes that played 3 to 4 years, like they used to be. So at the same time, I'm not going to call them undrafted guys, but they're not all-star caliber guys. They're just dudes. They're 6, 7, 8 deep with dudes, and that's with Victor Oladipo and Tyler Hero both out. Tyler Hero might come back for game 3. It's talking about as well too. So there's 20 points a game you might be getting back if he gets in the rotation. We'll see.
If he even can find the floor.
Exactly. He's a bucket, but at the same time, he's a high volume and defensively a little shaky. So we'll have to see. That's part of the reason we didn't see Duncan Robinson until, honestly, the middle of the playoffs. For a while there, he was getting paid $90 million to just hang out. And then now out of nowhere, he's a key integral part, averaging like 8 to 12 points a game and just sniping threes. And honestly, at the end of game 6, he hits one of those shots that we don't even go to game 7. He was that very integral piece of the offense right back in the thick of it. So the Heat feel very reminiscent of that team where they just plug and play guys. It goes as Jimmy goes, obviously, but Eric Spoelstra is a mad genius sometimes right now. He is scheming the best out of his guys as opposed to his guys saving him as well, too. I know a lot of people give Joe Mazzulla slack saying he's a bad coach, but he has great players. No one's saying that. But first of all, I think that's a little blasphemous. The guy got the job 2 days before the season started. Let's give him a year. I mean, let's give him a year really quick. Let's give him some
I
time.
picked him to finish 6th in the East, so if that tells you anything of my belief of like, yeah, good players can get you so far, but honestly, to get to finish where the Celtics finished, I feel like you have to be a good coach.
I feel like good players can get you good seedings like throughout the regular season and whatnot, but to win titles, you got to have a pretty good coach. I mean, as much as we kind of like to nag on Mike Budenholzer during those couple runs, he was a good coach during those playoffs with Giannis. We had some questionable things. We used to color cast those games. We used to complain, but it clearly worked out as well. Not saying he should have got fired by any means, but you can't win the NBA Finals with a bad coach. We saw that with David Blatt and Tyronn Lue, for example.
Yeah, I'd say in the coaching moments. So if you guys don't know what I mean by coaching moments, I mean inbound plays, game planning going up to the game, and then just making slight adjustments in the game. In those coaching moments, you look at Budenholzer, you look at Spoelstra in his history, you look at Phil Jackson, you look at Pat Riley. That's what they made their bottom dollar doing. Like that's what they made millions and won championships doing, is making these small, minute adjustments and killing inbounds plays. Like it may be a simple inbound play. It may be just what the stack that Miami runs with a man in the corner who wraps around and then ends back up in the corner just for Bam to step out and catch the ball. It may be something simple like that, but at one point in time, there's going to be a team that doesn't follow one of those guys and that wins you a game, and that's all the coach is preparing for is that one opportunity, So I digress. But, yeah, to your point of coaching, I just wanted to clear the air on that. Like, let's not kid ourselves. There's some fantastic coaches that just don't get a chance.
Exactly. The out-of-timeout plays, the different things like that as well, too. Just the right rotational moments, the right matchups, things like that as well. So we're gonna cool with the Joe Mazzulla hate. He has some things to work on, and we all acknowledge that he's got some holes in his game, for lack of a better phrase. But let's give him an off season, not 2 days of, by the way, get in there, guy. And that's a young guy too. For context, there's a still shot circular of Jimmy Butler guarding him in college. Like they played against each other in college. That's all you need to know, to the point where Jimmy Butler was guarding him at one point.
He is 34 years old. He has been an assistant coach since 2011, and that was at a small, I don't even know what Glenville State is. It is a small Division II school that he started his coaching career in 2011, and now he's a head coach 11 years later. Like that's, as far as trajectories go, that's Sean McVay trajectory.
That's territory. Almost like that.
Yeah, I mean, really, yeah. I mean, you get down to it, absolutely.
Exactly. Like, let's give him some time before we completely write him off. Like that's what's really at him. But Eric Spoelstra, clearly one of the best in the game, one of the better ones of all time. This will be a fun matchup to go with as well. So just a few of the things that we noticed in that finals. And, speaking of coaching, I think that might be a good time to segue now to the next part of the tip-off. The first domino of the very illustrious NBA coaching carousel has fallen as we saw 3 NBA Finals head coaches get fired this offseason. Well, one of them has found a new gig as they sub out the doc and they bring in the nurses. Nick Nurse is going to Philadelphia to take over for the 76ers, taking on the job of Joel Embiid and maybe James Harden. We'll see if he resigns, but Tyrese Maxey in squad too. So I, for one, really like this hire. I think Nick Nurse is a fantastic coach, and I like him going to Philadelphia, someone who can kind of build that team around Joel Embiid and just kind of maybe not galvanize him in the same way that Doc could, like that emotional leader, but strategically and able to handle the anarchy, as Jared points out there. But I'd say Nick Nurse is a good fit for that type of team, just the X's and the O's and that sort of thing. We all remember the box and one on Steph Curry in 2019. I think he'll be able to utilize Joel Embiid offensively in different sets like he did with Kawhi, not just pick and roll, shooting mid-range and three-pointers, getting his big 7'2", 300-pound self down on the block and having some off-ball movement to make it make sense.
Yeah, no, look, Nick Nurse, man, I'm so excited to see what Nick Nurse can do with this team. Because think about what he's been able to do in this past. If anybody said that the Raptors were that team when they went and won a championship, you're lying to yourselves again. Okay, non-basketball diehard nerds, if they thought that the Toronto Raptors were that team, you're lying to yourself.
Okay, I'll say, hold on now. This was part of my miraculous three-peat of getting it right in our preseason predictions 3 in a row before the wheels came flying off.
Yeah, no, I think this is going to be a fantastic situation for him, and he made Pascal Siakam what Pascal Siakam is. He made a lot of different guys on that team worth a lot of money. Look at Fred VanVleet. Look at these guys that are worth a lot of money now from Toronto that are now playing. Kyle Lowry, he made Kyle Lowry absolutely fantastic, and I agree. Maxey, I also say Bones as well. I can't think of his last name for the life of me, but Bones came over from the Clippers.
Oh, Clippers? Yeah. Okay.
Oh no, yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, he's a backup as well, and they have rotational pieces here to this team that look fantastic for the Sixers, and it's just a matter of can you play? And I do think number one, probably get rid of Harden. I do think that's probably his first priority, but I do think Nick Nurse, give him a chance. Like, just see what he could do. You're giving him now what is the reigning MVP in Joel Embiid, former Defensive Player of the Year Joel Embiid as well, and now you're just going to give him that along with his 30 points a game, 10, 15 rebounds a game, something he's never dealt with before in his career. Now he's going to be like, I have all these riches in my hands. What do I buy first? That's basically what Nick Nurse is doing. He's the evil genius right now sitting in the corner as he signed that contract. Like, yes, come to me, my preciouses. Like, I'm excited. I'm really excited about Nick Nurse signing with the Sixers. And I don't like the Sixers at all, but I'm excited to see what Nick Nurse can do because he is one of my favorite coaches.
I will say, too, he is one of my favorite ones that's on the market as well, too. I think he was vastly underrated. People feel like that 2019 run was a fluke, but they didn't really watch it. They look at the Kevin Durant and the injuries down the stretch, and they underrate what he did to get there in the first place and what he did in that finals. So I like this hire a lot as well. My question is, I wonder who they bring in as like a second star if they let Harden go. You have to imagine they're going to be active to try and get someone to pair with Embiid, whether they believe Maxey's the guy and they just start loading on role players. Maybe they try and go get a Jaylen Brown or, God forbid, a Damian Lillard somehow. I don't know if they can even try and pull that off, but I'm really curious to see how they attack because they got that. They were the first ones to get the coaching thing situated besides like the Rockets with Ime. But as far as those teams that were championship contenders that got rid of a coach, they were the first to jump on it as well. So I'm really curious to see what they have in mind going down the stretch and what these other teams do. Maybe we just see them all musical chairs and we see something like Monty Williams end up in Milwaukee, Budenholzer end up in Toronto. Maybe they just weirdly
Monty Williams in Milwaukee would be silly.
That would be something. You give him Drew Holiday at point guard as well compared to the 67-year-old Chris Paul he's had, who, while fantastic still, it's limited compared to what if you had like New Orleans or Clippers Chris Paul.
I could just imagine if I'm Monty Williams, if he gets the job in Milwaukee, walking into that for an office. Obviously, this is all pending Giannis never being moved ever. But he sees Giannis and he's just like a big guy that does big guy things.
While also being able to point forward.
And you attack the rim from the three-point line. You don't just settle for stupid threes all the time. You maybe pop up a couple here and there, but you're not afraid to use your size to attack the rim.
Oh, and you get rebounds? That'll do.
Oh, DeAndre Ayton, who? Like, I don't need that guy ever again in my life. Like, he would be so excited.
He's just excited. Him and DeAndre Ayton needed to split one way or the other, and I'm glad it kind of worked out. So we'll see if we can get a DeAndre Ayton revival with a new coach, or if, well, there's a lot to. We'll see. We'll keep an eye on the Suns as well too.
He'll be a Jazz by this time next year.
There's a lot of time. That might not be so bad. Put him with Larry Markin. Oh Lord, in the future. But
Cody Kessler, down low, Twin Towers.
Doesn't have quite the same appeal, but I see where you're going with this. But
I'm sorry, second in Rookie of the Year voting, Cody Kessler, sir. Put some respect on that name.
Oh, I was thinking Cody Zeller, and Cody Kessler is also the name of former Browns quarterback as well too. So so Cody Kessler, that name obviously is going to bring up a little bit of question marks. But either way, it's definitely curious to watch to see what the Suns do because there's a lot of talent there, but a lot of what am I walking into? There's a lot to keep an eye on there as well. So definitely going to keep a lot of eyes on the NBA coaching carousel coming into this offseason. But speaking of the offseason, we're getting ready to jump in the NBA Finals, so we got one hypothetical that was recently brought up too. Dwight Howard recently saying you put him in his prime against Jokic right now, he's winning that one with a smile on his face. So Superman versus the Joker, whether it's 1-on-1 or 5-on-5, who you taking?
Yes.
Touche.
One-on-one, I take Superman. In a 5-on-5 battle, I'm going to take Jokic. I think you look at it even just in the bubble. What was Jokic's biggest weakness? Dwight Howard. And Anthony up until Dwight Howard left to go play in China, he was Jokic's biggest weakness, and that's because he's physical. And yes, Anthony Davis, obviously fantastic player, finally learned how to be physical, but he does it in a different way. Anthony Davis is such a unnatural freak. It's just like I can't really compare the two. It's like saying, "Hey, go guard Giannis." Jokic, like, that just doesn't work out as well for him. We're talking about a kid who was a point guard up until his senior year of high school when he grew a foot and a half. So yeah, it's the comparison there to AD is tough, but I will say Dwight was a different beast 1-on-1, even without offensive abilities. Jokic does have the offensive abilities. He has a weird, awkward shot, but I think his biggest asset is his ability to pass. And I think no matter what Dwight can do, he can block shots, which is great, but he doesn't ever steal the ball. So we're not talking about a guy that in a 5-on-5 matchup is going to step into the lane and steal the ball from you or prevent the ball from being entered into the post to start the offense, which is what you see with Jokic. Jokic starts the offense with the ball, in his hands in high post or right on the free throw line and see what happens type of situation. So I'm going Joker in a 5-on-5, but I'm going to go Dwight, prime Dwight, Superman in a 1-on-1 situation.
I will say Dwight Howard gets vastly underrated, unfortunately, because that is a top 75 player all time, or he should have been. The fact that he wasn't is abysmal. I mean, one of the best. His prime was absolutely incredible. It was a little short-lived. Unfortunately, those back injuries deprived us of what could have been as well. And then that first stint with the Lakers, and then kind of bouncing around before having a mini revitalization plan next to LeBron and Anthony Davis in that second Lakers stint. Which, my goodness, that front line featuring those two. No wonder, like the Heat and no wonder that team won the finals that year. Like, good luck with those two in the paint. But I'm going to take Joker and both of them by a slim margin, based on kind of what you mentioned as well. Dwight defensively is going to annoy Joker to death. He is going to punish him. Joker's not shooting 65% from the field on him like we see now. It's probably closer to 40%. It's going to be miserable. But Dwight's offensive game is dribble, spin, dunk, dribble, drop step, try and dunk from farther away. / throw the ball down like Thor's hammer.
Yeah.
And I think exactly. And while Jokic has the ability to jump over a flip-flop and nothing else, he is still a big body that can make that difficult for Dwight. So, and he has so much English whipped cream spin, whatever you want to call it with his shots, how he can spin the ball, throw it from behind his head. He finds a way to get the ball in the bucket. So it would be like a 9-10 game, and then Joker hit like a weird rainbow shot or something like that. In a one-on-one scenario, Dwight would make it miserable, but Joker would find a way because he has an offensive game and he's a big enough body to stand between Dwight and dunking, basically, because he can't just fully bully him and then dunk on him as easily as he does some of the other guys. So I'll have it close in that regard. 5-on-5. Joker has the complete game. It's the same thing. You don't try not to let Dwight dunk. He can kick it out to 3 if you double him, which is what he did with the Magic in his heyday. Not the same as Joker skip passing it for a wide open 3 or skip passing it for a back cut, patty caking it right on the money. Like, we're in the same agreement. So there's not really much of a competition in a 5-on-5 scenario.
Yeah, and it's funny because I even say, like, if we're talking Jokic, like, in different parts of his career now, skinny Jokic is actually stronger and can put up a fight against Dwight. Fat Jokic was weaker against Dwight. Like, and that's what the funny thing is. If you look at Jokic, is like as he's gotten smaller and skinnier, he's gotten better down low.
Stronger too, even almost athletic looking, almost.
Yeah, I mean, until you watch him run, and then it's like, no, like,
well, compared to Fat Jokic.
Yeah, he's still a baby calf type thing trying to run. It's just so awkward. But no, I like, you're exactly right. I think Joker just picks him apart in a 5-on-5 game. I mean, it's having a big man who's 7 foot with a 7'5" reach type of situation, and he can throw pocket passes like nobody's business. He can drop a back cut between your legs because that's just what he wants to do. Let's not forget he can throw it behind his back because he just wants to and hit a guy right in the pocket. And that's not fair at any level, let alone we're talking like a matchup between Dwight and Joker. So yeah, definitely Joker in a 5-on-5. But yeah, I think Dwight, while he was given a lot of stick, I think that body, that just strength of his is just unnatural and maybe steroid induced. Who knows? But he bodies Joker a lot in a 1-on-1 situation.
I will say very few centers defensively can see Joker's offensive game. Like, you can go down the history. Very few are going to check him in 1-on-1. Dwight's one of the better defensive centers you'll ever find, so I think he's in that competition. Maybe Hakeem, arguably the second best defensive center all time, and he has the offensive game to go with it too.
Skinny Shaq.
Like Orlando Shaq, just with the ability to run and be athletic too. Like, those are some of the few that can maybe see his game and even really do anything about it. But you put a lot of
I'll say, and Skinny Shaq, the big thing with the difference with Skinny Shaq versus later Shaq is he would actually prevent the ball from being entered in the post. He would actually battle that and prevent that because he knew he was smaller than some of these bigger guys. So, him and Joker, he'd be like, oh, You mean to tell me I have to stop you from getting the ball and I can win? Oh, all right. I'm gonna tap this to trade. I'm gonna tap this to whoever my point guard is, and we're off and running. I'm gonna go dunk and break another backboard. Like that's what Skinny Shaq. The difference between Skinny Shaq and Dwight would be was just that ability to play that extra little bit of defense, and it's just on the entry point down low. So, I mean that's.
Exactly. We can go down the wild hypotheticals all day as well, and that'll get us in dangerous territory. But we got ourselves a main event to go and get into now. So we're going to go and transition now into the main event. And as we mentioned earlier, we're talking about the NBA Finals today. Last year, if you guys who saw, we did a little bit of head-to-head with a Warriors and a Celtics fan. Today, we're going to take care of this ourselves. We're just going to go down a list, and we're going to talk about who we think are the better options and kind of compare the teams leading with a prediction and an MVP prediction. So start right off the top. We're going to go with this top. We're going with the superstars. The best number one option, you got the Joker versus recently established trademarked Jimmy McBuckets now, I believe it is. So
no, it's just Jimmy Buckets.
Oh, Jimmy Buckets. Excuse me. Clearly, I'm out of line. But so we got Jimmy Butler, Nikola Jokic, better number one option. I'll go and take this one first. It's close because it's in the playoffs, but I'm still going to take Joker because of how outstanding he's been. We're not including regular season. We go with playoffs. That's why this is close. Jimmy's right on his heels. I'm going to take Joker just because the way he controls the game from all facets. Jimmy does like 98% of what Joker does as well, too. I'm just taking Joker by a slight margin. But you told me Jimmy Buckets was the guy. I'm not really going to argue too deeply with you on this one.
Yeah, see, I stick with Jimmy McBuckets just because he gives you a 40-piece or a 20-piece every night. That's why I say McBuckets. But no, it's this one. I hate saying this way because it feels like I'm picking one over the other, and I wouldn't take the other. But the fact is, the better of the two right now and in the playoffs is Jokic. However, Jimmy has been fantastic nonetheless. Like he ranked on your list as the best performer in the playoffs earlier in these playoffs.
It's a lot closer now than it was then when we did it. I'll say that.
Yeah, and like now Jokic here has stepped up, and obviously I think a big part of that was his battle with AD in the last series. I mean, that was incredible to watch. But yeah, I think night in, night out, nobody can really match up with Jokic, and that's what makes him so difficult. You can still slow down Jimmy, and Jimmy still has that stupid tendency to roll into the corner, try to hit a fadeaway falling out of bounds type of jumper or three-point shot, which people still bite on the stupid pump fake he throws before it, and then he just falls out of bounds and hits a jumper or he gets fouled. Like, it just doesn't make sense. So that's what Jimmy relies on, whereas Jokic his arsenal is.
The bag is pretty deep. And I will say between these two, the amount of pump fakes we're going to see this series is going to give cameraman a heart. Their necks are going to hurt. They should train their cameramen. Never move the ball on the first movement of the ball. If it looks like they're shooting, they're not. Until proven otherwise, they're not shooting the ball the first 3 times the ball moves.
And don't touch the zoom wheel. Do not touch the zoom wheel ever at any point in time in this game.
Wide full court shots only. We will get the shot after they make it the close up. None of this.
We'll digitally zoom in if we have to. Like it'll be grainy, but we're gonna digitally zoom in. Actually, they shoot in 4K, so it'll still look like 1080.
We'll figure it out later, but just don't fall for anything. Next, we're now going to go on to topic number 2. We're going to cruise right into this one. The better number 2 option, the better Robin or co-star for you. We got Jamal Murray versus Bam Adebayo, and I went first last time. I'll go ahead and let you take the reins on this one.
This one hurts me to admit. I'm going to go Jamal Murray. I would love to say Bam, but we don't know what Bam we're going to get. I mean, it's like the box of chocolates Forrest Gump talks about. You just don't know what you're going to get at the end of the day. So, yeah, give me Jamal. You at least know at the very least he's going to run the offense like an old school point guard. Maybe hit two or three threes in the game, but I mean, he can give you 30. But at the very least, you're going to get 10. You're going to get 10 and probably 10 assists, maybe 12 assists from Jamal every single night. Bam, you're not even guaranteed 10 rebounds from Bam, and that's what's terrifying.
So I'm going to agree with you. I'm taking Jamal Murray because I know they used to have Vinnie Johnson known as the microwave. You can call Jamal Murray the flamethrower because at any moment you drop the lighter in the wrong spot or the Axe body spray, whatever you want to call him, he can cook and get you 30 and a quarter. He's that dangerous. So I'm going to take Jamal Murray for that. And on top of that, Bam Adebayo is a good player, a really good player, but he's kind of awful as a big man if you watch sometimes. Against the Celtics, he was kind of getting worked by Derek White in the paint. Derek White has a big forehead, but he's not a big body. Like they were in the paint. He would just try and shoot a fadeaway over Derek White when he has the ball in the block. Against Al Horford, he was getting blocked and struggling in the paint. Robert Williams, as good of a role player as he is, he should not be giving you hell like that. One of the better plus minuses, as you like to point out all the time. A fantastic player.
I find it ironic that the best down low performance we saw with Bam was actually against their best down low defender from the Celtics in Robert Williams during the entire time. And it wasn't even that good. He gave you 14 points in the game. But he matched up mostly with Robert Williams and scored most of his points against Robert Williams. And it's like, to see that versus, like, I mean, you said it, Derek White, Marcus Smart being thrown at him, which, don't get me wrong, Marcus Smart, former defense player of the year, big, thick body, like, does what he flops galore. But doesn't matter. The dude is 6'2". You are almost 7 feet tall with a 7'2" wingspan. Just,
like, I know, Bam, you're a little bit
to the
of
top shelf.
Smaller center because he's like 6'9", 6'10". I know he's not big, but you're athletic, you're strong, you're used to dunking on people. That's your role as the point center. And when you have a smaller guy on you in the paint, I need you to go at him. And in this game, you're going to have Jokic you have to deal with on the defensive end. You're not stopping him, so hopefully you just kind of get in his way enough, and you got to find a way to make him work on the other end. So I'm still taking Jamal Murray. Bam's a really good player, but as a big man, he almost needs to be a power forward. Unfortunately, it's almost like when Anthony Davis had Dwight Howard. You saw how lethal that was. We talked about it earlier. He needs his Dwight Howard. It feels like sometimes because he shoots that mid range really good. He's almost better doing that than he is when he has to be in the paint. So we're in agreement. So far, we're both taking Jokic and we're both taking Murray, although Jokic is a smaller gap between Jimmy, it feels like.
You mentioned Bam guarding Jokic. I'm going to go hot take here, and I said it on the NBA show, so if you watch that, then spoil it. You already know the answer to this, or you know what I'm about to say. But my hot take for this series is Bam Adebayo spends less than 50% of the time guarding Jokic one-on-one.
I don't hate that at all. It might be smart to honestly just throw a bunch of different bodies. I want to see Kevin Love, Zeller, all those guys throwing him. Jimmy Butler, as you mentioned, throw him on there. Caleb Martin, just rotate bodies.
I even throw Kyle. Like,
he'll flop if nothing else. He'll get you an offensive foul.
Exactly. And Kyle, give credit to Kyle where it's due. Is like he actually has that thick lower body and he knows how to use himself in those situations. He did it when he was in Toronto all the time, especially going against like Giannis, and he just basically just sit there and post himself up. And you push against him, he's smart enough to be like, oh no.
If you touch him, he will go flying. So like honestly, throw all the bodies at him, Eric Spoelstra and the zone. They'll find some fun ideas, but that'll be something to keep an eye on. Next, we're going to move to topic number 3 now. We're going to go with the 3-point shooting of both of these teams, and I'll take this one first. Would you rather have for 3-point shooting the Heat or the Nuggets? I'm going to actually take the Heat on this one, so this will be the first topic of which the Heat win during this. The Nuggets are a really good 3-point shooting team. They can shoot the lights out. A lot of their shots are wide open because it's double teaming Jokic, and he's skip passing it to the wide open guy, which is how you're supposed to do it. The Heat are shooting contested threes because they kind of have to because their offense stagnates for 22 seconds, and then Duncan Robinson, Caleb Martin, Gabe Vincent has to put up, or Jimmy Butler has to put up a contested three off a kick out, and they still hit those at an incredible clip. When you see they actually get open looks like we saw against the Celtics in games 3 and 7 especially, they will shoot nearly 50%. They will make it rain, which is incredible considering they were terrible in the regular season from 3. They were like 27th and 29th in offense. But something in the postseason's clicked. They have found the open looks. The plays are rolling. Their guys are getting open. They're shooting confidently. Duncan Robinson's back firing comfortably. Gabe Vincent, Caleb Martin with a slightly awkward shot. Jimmy Butler's even hitting threes now too. So I'm gonna take the Heat for his 3-point shooting by just a little bit, just because I look at the Nuggets. Aaron Gordon, while he hits some threes, he's not a 3-point shooter. I just think the Heat have more of them. I think if all things are creative equal, the Heat just have more snipers. So I'm going to take the Heat when it comes to 3-point shooting.
Well, I'm going to finally be a contrarian. I'm going to say and it's more down to consistency. The Nuggets in the regular season shot 38.9% from 3. And in the playoffs, guess what they're shooting from 3-point land? 38.6%. So slightly worse, but still 38-point-something%. It's really interesting to watch that. Anthony Perez from Summit, he actually dropped a huge stat that I thought was very interesting. Michael Porter Jr. shoots 80% effective field goal percentage on catch and shoot shots, with over half of those being 3-point shots, and that's in these playoffs. That's a stupidly high percentage no matter what you're doing, let alone catch and shoot where he's normally catch and shooting, which is the 18 and out mark. So, look, give me the Nuggets here. They just for consistency, if I just picked off the playoffs, who's the better 3-point shooting team, then I'd probably pick the Heat because of what they've been doing. They're shooting like 39% in the playoffs versus, as you mentioned, 36, 34, something like that in the regular season. But consistency is where it matters here. I think consistency does does play a part in this at the end of the day, because no matter where they're traveling, shooters are going to keep shooting what they normally do. So that's that. Give me the Nuggets here, better 3-point shooting.
Shooters shooting. I imagine we're going to see a lot of them. I imagine both teams are shooting at least 35 a game through the series. It feels like. I feel like it's going to rain a lot both in Denver and Miami. Two different parts of the country, same weather forecast. But that's going to now move us to topic number 4. We're going to look at the defensive side. Who would you rather take defensively? And I'm going to let you go first on this one. Who would you rather take defensively?
All game defensively, I'm taking Spoelstra and the Heat. And notice how I said that, Spoelstra and the Heat. Because at the end of the day, Spoelstra draws up the correct defenses 85% of the time. I'm not going to say 100%. I'm not going to be that greedy. But 85% of the time, this future Hall of Fame coach, much better coach than Doc Rivers. I said it. I will die on that. And he will draw you up the right call almost every single time. And he will put, at the very least, when he doesn't draw up the right call, he has a guy by Jimmy just leading his defense that can point out these things when he sees it and go and make up for it with his crazy athleticism. Same with Bam. I think Bam is a fantastic defender as well, even if he's not performing on the offensive side. But, you look at this one from top to bottom, every single Heat player, except for maybe Duncan Robinson, will at least do a decently good job of shutting you down. Even Kyle Lowry. That's what Kyle Lowry does now. Kyle Lowry literally just plays defense and then will dribble the ball up to hand off to Jimmy Butler. Like, that is his job at this point in time. And he does a good job of it. Everybody on that team does. Even Duncan Robinson, if he's feeling himself offensively, then he does play. He's one of those guys that plays better defensively for some reason. But you got Caleb Martin, long and lanky, and I can say that about every single player across the board for the Heat. Don't get me wrong. The Nuggets, timeouts, coming off change of possessions, if they have time to set up, a great defense. But from top to bottom, I think the Heat have the overall best defense.
Absolutely. And when I look at that as well, too, I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to go with the Heat on this one as well, too. Because of Spoelstra, yes, Tyler Hero is playing absolutely no defense as well.
He doesn't count. We don't even know if he's playing in the finals.
So we'll keep him out right now. He goes in there. You put him in the lineup. This gets a little bit closer really quickly. Yeah. But I'm gonna take the Heat as well, because not only do they do everything you mentioned, they can switch between man and zone better than any NBA team. And because of Erik Spoelstra, his coaching, his awareness to when to call it. You mentioned Bam and Jimmy, probably the two best individual defenders in this series, arguably, give or take. You look at everyone on the Heat, they will get into that chair. They will be in the chair on defense for 30 to 40 minutes, whatever it takes. For the Nuggets, you talked about consistency with the 3-point shooting. Well, defensively, the Nuggets have been kind of terrible for the most part. They have their moments against the Lakers.
Up until the playoffs, yeah.
And even in the playoffs, like they've given up like 130 multiple times to like the Lakers and the Suns. Like their defense is the fact that they just do better. They play better offense. If you miss, they will make you pay for it. Then they'll get you out of rhythm. It's almost like the 2007 Patriots sometimes as well, too, or the Peyton Manning Colts. Our defenses, we will outscore you. And sometimes the Nuggets fall into that. They do play pretty good defense. They play underratedly good defense. Brown is really good. Jamal Murray's athletic. Jokic, not a rim protector, but he's a big body. He'll sometimes get in the way. Aaron Gordon, underrated defender. He has found a really good niche in his role besides just dunking guy. Now he's a fast break dunk. I think he's going to be put on Jimmy Butler a lot in this series as well, too. He's a very good flick defender, but still going to take the Heat for everything you mentioned, plus their ability to just do everything, honestly, from top to bottom. And the fact that everybody that's not Duncan Robinson or Tyler Hero, who might not play, plays defense and isn't really a liability. So it's going to take us now to topic number 5. And this one's going to coincide a little bit with some of the other ones, but I think this one's going to be close. The better depth when you go top to bottom, 1 through 12. Well, 1 through 9. We'll go with guys that are playing. We won't really include those who don't play. So this one's really, really close. And the Nuggets at the top of it are way better, but I'm going to take the Heat again, because I think once you get to like those 7, 8, 9, those later players is where I think they can start to separate. Talk about Kevin Love. Didn't even play for like 5 games last series. He's still an option there. Talked about Cody Zeller, who weirdly saw minutes and was weirdly effective, as awful as it looks. He's still effective. Tyler Hero, we mentioned it. He might be coming back, it looks like. Gabe Vincent, Caleb Martin. You go down the list, player for player going across the board. At the top, it's going to be the Nuggets for like the 3 of the first 5. But then as you get down into those 7, 8, 9 guys that will actually play, going to give the Heat the slight edge, but it's really close because the Nuggets might be the second deepest team in the playoffs, honestly. It's probably 1A, 1B. I'm going to give the Heat that slight advantage because I think they go a little bit deeper and they play all of them and they all play an important role. Like Duncan Robinson was on the bookshelf until 2 weeks ago, and now he's back in here sniping threes. And as you mentioned, kind of playing defense, and he's getting backdoor layups now too. He's attacking the paint, shooting
Dunking.
floaters over people all of a sudden. Like, oh, give me the
Duncan
Heat.
is dunking.
They don't even. Yeah, exactly. When we say Duncan is dunking, and not Tim Duncan either. We're talking about.
I'm not even talking about Dunkin' Donuts either here.
Exactly. That's all you need to know. So I'm gonna take the Heat for depth on this one. Just they have a lot. The Nuggets have bigger tools in the bag, but the Heat have more tools in the bag.
That's fair.
No, I'm not calling them tools either.
I mean, I'm gonna call most of them tools, especially Tyler Hero. If you watched the new White Man Can't Jump, you understand my joke.
Okay, TJ.
Yeah. Anyways, better depth. Yeah, you want the Heat. This one's a toss up to me. I think better depth. It also relies on a lot of consistency, and I'm gonna stick with the Nuggets on this one, consistency wise. And I'm also gonna look at a guy by the name of Bruce Brown. Say what you will, but the biggest little man on the court, guaranteed every single time. He will do more down
6'5" center in the game.
Yeah, he will do more to damage you inside of the painted area than anybody else, and it's because most people just look at him and like, oh, 6'2", 6'4", whatever he is, point guard, shooting guard. He's not gonna really affect me. Dude will come in and play small forward basically, and look absolutely dominant. Between him, I think obviously depending on who they have coming off their bench as well, that also change. Their rotation changes, and that's what I think the big thing with the Nuggets are. If they run the same five out there every single night, then their rotation doesn't change, and they still look great. But they can also pick and change different positions in their starting five, and it still works as long as Jamal, as long as MPJ, as long as Joker are all there. The Nuggets can pretty much transfer out the other two players and switch them in as you need to. And I think that plays a lot into why I think the Nuggets have better depth.
I think it's definitely going to be a fun matchup as well, too. I think we're going to see a Kevin Love versus Aaron Gordon signing at one point, too. I think we might even see DeAndre Jordan in this series. That's something to keep an eye on.
Whoa. Breaks. Whoa,
hey,
let's not get carried away.
Just saying, it's a possibility. If we're talking depth, let's start digging into the pockets. Let's bring everybody. Everybody, throw in Udonis Haslem if you want.
I thought we were talking about the top 9. I'm not even including DeAndre.
I know. I'm saying we're going deep into the bag now. We're dipping in. Like, it's going to get fun. So I think the depth is going to be a very fun thing to keep an eye out in this one. Normally, finals you see like 7-man rotations because coaches are a little bit scared to play certain players. I think there's going to be no fear in this one. I think we're going to see 9 players per team play at least decent minutes, not in blowout minutes too. I think
we'll see at least 5 or more minutes from 8 or 9 players. I think each team. But I will say I do think that it could come into play later in the series or even early on. If let's say the Nuggets do play 12 and they play 12 effectively, and the Heat maybe has 1 or 2 guys a little bit, maybe Gabe Vincent carries on that ankle shoulder thing, whatever's going on with him. Maybe I don't know. Somebody gets Jason Tatum situation again. Like that changes everything the moment somebody goes down, and so you're already a thin bench with the Heat. Like you can't really go past 9 deep anyways. So.
Udo's right there ready to go, and he's ready to come in and bang at any given moment. So he's ready to go. But
call up Chris Quinn. Chris, take the polo off. It's time.
Bringing a Morris. I mean, they're not too far away. They're familiar. So there's options there as well. So it's going to bring us now to topic number 6. We're going to look at the man in charge of all. We're going to go with the better coach. And I went first last time, so go and let you go first this time. So I'll keep mine short and quick. So you can go ahead and go first.
I've already said my piece on this man, and I think he is a future Hall of Famer. And that is Eric Spoelstra. Mike Malone, I'm sorry, but you can't hold Spoelstra's jock in this situation. Talk about a coach who has a 600 win percentage in the playoffs in Eric Spoelstra, who has won 2 titles, who has only missed the playoffs twice in his career as a head coach, and versus a coach who has 10 years of coaching experience, who has not won a title, who missed the first 5 years in the playoffs, and really, he's even been fired. Spoelstra has not been fired at the end of the day. And by the way, he has a sub 500 win percentage in the playoffs. And maybe I'm biased. I'm a Kings fan. They probably shouldn't have fired him. But you tried to take away DeMarcus Cousins, and they said no. And then they traded him anyways. I don't get that. Anyway, I digress. But yeah, no. Look, Mike Malone. I think he's a Thibodeau reincarnation. I don't think he's going to be the greatest. I think he's a Thibodeau type of guy. Defensive type of speciality here. I love his offensive, what he's allowing his offense to do, but I think he's more focused on defense. At the end of the day, obviously defense wins championships, so let's not kid ourselves and think that's just a brush away comment. I do think he's a great defensive mind, but I think X's and O's offensively is where Spoelstra really carries the torch, and X's and O's in general, Spoelstra will throw everything and the kitchen sink at you because he's seen it all. He has watched, he's a tape junkie, he's an absolute tape rat. and he will go into the Hall of Fame as one of the greatest coaches we have ever seen, and probably the greatest coach of our generation, because I'm just going to say we saw the tail end of Phil Jackson and Pat Riley, so it doesn't count. And Jerry Sloan.
Oh, I'm going to agree with you too. Eric Spoelstra's the guy. I won't spend too much time on it. It's not even a shock. Michael Malone's a really good coach, and I think his best years could even be ahead of him. Like, they could just be starting now. He's a very good coach, but Eric Spoelstra, as you mentioned, is probably the best coach in the game right now. And from our time, there's Greg Popovich, there's him, and then there's Steve Kerr. It feels like. It feels like.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Pop. I left you out, and I'm sorry. I feel terrible about leaving Popovich out.
But yeah, there you go. And RJ's but sure to remind you of it there really quickly as well too. But
I know.
Those are kind of like the three from like that after Phil Jackson to now, if that makes sense. Those are kind of three I look at. He's in that conversation, and he's done it with so many different types of teams, starting with the Wade and LeBron mega team. Then at one point they were outstanding with Hassan Whiteside and the ghost of Dwayne Wade at one point. Then you had the Jimmy Butler bubble run, and he's had so many different types of teams that he's been effective with as well too. So yeah, I'm going to take Eric Spoelstra too. So it's going to take us now to topic number 7, and this one's not a who would you rather. This is a prediction one for us. Who do you think is going to be the X factor in this series? The one who you think might be the reason you win or lose, or can maybe sway the tide. So I'm going to go ahead and go first on this one, and I'm going to go not just out of left field. I'm going to go outside the park on this one. I'm going to go reaching. Actually, that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to go way out there. I'm going to go with Kevin Love. Not because that is a big body man. You could throw at Jokic. That is a guy who can hit threes. He can outlet pass it, and he can rebound. We talked about Bam is a good player, but you don't know if you want him banging down there with Jokic. You got Kevin Love. There's 5 fouls. Can he guard Jokic? Not really. Can he be a big body to get in the way? Why not? Can he shoot threes and maybe pull Jokic and whoever's guarding him away from the basket? It's an option as well too. Is he any sort of contention for Finals MVP? Absolutely not. But a guy who can maybe change the trajectory of the series just a little bit. I'm gonna take Kevin Love as a potential X factor who, if you make all things equal, him performing at Kevin Love levels could be the difference.
I hate it because it makes sense, and I've been denying it the entire day today. I've denied it in the first show I did. I'm going to continue denying it now. I'm going to say I deny your reality and replace it with my own type of situation. So I'm going to say no to Kevin Love. I love the idea though. Makes sense. Logistically, it does make sense. But I do think Mike Malone comes into play there, especially trying to draw Jokic out type of situation. I do think Mike Malone comes into play and it's like Jokic, no. You stay in the paint at all times. Michael Porter will go get him. Aaron Gordon will go get him. You're fine.
I'll also throw into there just the ability to get rebounds. We saw what happened in the last series. They let Jokic get 12 rebounds in a quarter. Kevin Love, even skinny now, Kevin Love, who has gray in his beard, can still get boards. So that way it's not Bam, please get boards and save us, or Gabe Vincent and Kyle Lowry, please crash the glass. That's what I should also highlight too.
That's fair. So that's going to kind of play into my pick is I do think obviously the X factor here is Bam. I think he decides the series. If we see Bam that can give you 20 and 20, like he does with the USA team, like he can do in the regular season at times, I think that Bam can show up and play for 6 games, quality minutes, and get you a W.
Finals MVP doing that.
Yeah, I mean, really, yeah, seriously, Iguodala won it for less. So you look at that and. But I do think Bam is the X factor here for me. I mean, I look at both teams, and Jamal Murray could score a bunch. That's fine. MPJ could score a bunch. That's fine. At the end of the day, we all know Jokic is going to be the kind of the trend for that team. He's the guaranteed X factor on that side because everything runs through him. And you're not really gonna slow him down. It's kind of it's the MJ factor. You just let him do him, try to shut down everything else. So, and that relies on Bam being able to shut down everything else. So. My prediction earlier, my hot take was that Bam is not going to guard Jokic more than 50% of the time one-on-one because I don't think he's going to guard them in man. I think he's going to put him in a zone or have him cover somebody like Michael Porter Jr. or Aaron Gordon or something like that to shut them down. He is fast enough. He's more athletic defensively, and I think he is a guy that defensively is underrated in a lot of people's eyes, and you're going to see a lot of his defensive ability. And, as much as Jokic has been dominant offensively, it's safe to say he hasn't been dominant defensively, and especially not in a high pick and roll action. He has been less than dominant in those situations. And you know what the number one play the Heat run is? High pick and roll with Bam at the top. And you know what the Lakers did to dominate that? They did that, and they ran a guy underneath to shoot a 3. So if you're the Nuggets, you have to take your pick. Do I go after the 3-point shooter or go after a Bam who's been underperforming? If you go after the three-point shooter, you have a better chance of winning. Bam now has an opportunity to go get buckets. He's not been doing it in the playoffs, so it's up to him to make these shots, to make these bunnies at the hoop against a much smaller defender probably who's going to meet at the hoop. If he can do that, that's going to be the deciding factor for me.
Absolutely. And I do want to go back to one thing you mentioned too that I think is going to be key is how do they handle the Jokic conundrum? Do you try and double him and then he kicks it out to open guys? Or do you just sit back like, we're guarding him one-on-one, Kevin, Bam, whoever's down there, he's going to get 50 on you, but we're not going to let him get 10 assists. Like, he'll get 50, but we sure as hell are not going to let Michael Porter and Aaron Gordon get 20 each. Like, Jokic, if you want to shoot the ball 25 times and look like LeBron against the Pistons in fourth quarter and overtime, and you beat us that way, go right ahead. But we'll be damned if you're getting 30 and 15. You can get 45 and 4.
Look, you can let one guy get 20 beyond Jokic, and you can let one guy get 10 or more. But you cannot let two guys get 20, and you cannot let multiple people get 10 or plus. Like three or more people get 10 plus. That's the goal for the Heat. So like if you're the Heat, isolate Jokic, put him on an island, let him do Jokic things. If Jokic goes off for a 70 and 10 night and nobody else scores more than 15, you win the game.
Most likely, assuming you don't go like
likely.
offensively stale. But like, yeah, exactly. You make him shoot the ball. You make him Kobe. You basically you don't let him facilitate the offense. You make him beat the offense at that point. Like, don't let him, kind of like what they talk about with LeBron at some points, because he can. Yeah. They're going to get theirs at any point. Just don't let them get others involved when they get unbeatable, quote unquote.
And that's a part of his game, and even LeBron for that matter. You talk about both of those guys. That is a quintessential part of their game that they feel the need to get that going and get their teammates going. So they'll actually start forcing turnovers that way. You've seen it with LeBron all the time. And in a lot of times, if you've been successful against Jokic and shutting him down and having an off night, that has been because you isolate him and make him just play offense and score on his own. And he hates it. He's like, no, I want to get my teammates. I want to get Jamal. I want to get MPJ. I want to get these guys involved. We haven't talked about Gilchrist as well, but like, these guys, he gets everyone involved, and if he can't do that, he's going to force bad passes and turnovers and things like that. So, yeah, that's where Bam's going to come into play.
That's definitely something to keep it on, which is now going to take us into the final part of the main event here. We got the finals prediction. We got the MVP. Kelcey, lead the way. Who do you got winning, and who's taking home some extra hardware?
So I know I picked the Nuggets in a lot of things. I said a lot of nice things about Jokic.
Just about everything.
Yeah, pretty much. But I will say my X factor being the key takeaway here is Bam. I do think he actually comes and performs. I think Caleb Martin continues what he's been doing. I think we see a fantastic Gabe Vincent as well. He may not give you the 15 or more, but he's going to hit a couple key threes. And Jimmy's going to keep giving you 25 plus. And plus, I mean, let's not forget his ultimate assist game here, giving you, 8 assists a game almost for the most part, giving you 8 boards as well. So altogether, I'm going to go with the Heat here. I'm going to say they steal game 1, and that says I'm on a good trajectory here in this series. I'm going to say they win in 6. So they actually close it out on home court.
Okay. All right. I see you. So got Miami Heat taking it. And yeah, unfortunately, I'm not going to be that guy either. It looks like we're both taking the Heat on this one. I jokingly said it on the NBA show earlier when someone asked who should I bet on. If you want to win money, bet on the Heat. If you're scared to lose money, bet on the Nuggets. It feels, you mentioned it too, even for you, the Nuggets during our checklist, you picked them, what was it, 5 out of the 7? Something along those lines.
I mean, they look better on paper, but
it feels like it's the Heat's time right now too. Like the way they're playing, they have that weird it factor, it feels like, as well. And I don't know, it just feels like it's the Heat's to win or lose. And selfishly, I prefer the Heat over the Nuggets, so there's that. Also, I want to see an 8 seed finally win, a play-in tournament team win since this was instituted. And it just feels like the Heat's year. I don't know what it is. Something just feels like it's falling for them right there. The Jimmy factor you mentioned, Bam having a bit of a rough end of the series, maybe revitalize himself. All these older, quote-unquote, undrafted players, everything you want to say about them. It just feels like the perfect storm of them coming together right now as well. So I'm taking the Heat as well. I'm going to take them in 7. I do think I think they could be up 3-2, but they're going to come out and shoot like 52% from 3 in that game 6 to force a game 7. Like they're going to empty the clip and force a game 7. So I think I'm going to go with game 7. And I think that game 7 might even end up being I won't say the only home game the Nuggets lose, but like I can see that being a situation where the Nuggets are undefeated at home until that game 7. So I'm going to take the Heat, and I'm going to take Jimmy Butler's MVP because barring someone else averaging 25, they're not going to give it to, or Jimmy Butler shooting 2 of 16 every game is not going to anybody else. Feels like I don't want to say the narrative would fit that, but it would take an absolutely putrid Jimmy performance or a Herculean effort from someone else to take it from that guy, it feels like.
Here's a stat for you. 45% of teams who have had a rest of 7 or more days in all sports, all major American sports, in the playoffs, if they've had a rest of 7 or more days before they played the championship game, have won. So only 45% have won. That is less than half that have won. That is 55% that has lost after having 7 or more days of rest. And I believe it's been 9 days for the Nuggets.
So what you're saying is the Heat purposely let it get to 7 games so that they can use that stat in their favor. You're saying is that mad of a genius where you had this in the back pocket.
I don't know if it's Spoelstra or Jimmy, but I don't know. Somebody out there had this plan. But no, that is a fun stat that I learned that earlier this year, and I've been watching that one clip pretty closely. So it's been very interesting.
All right, so we're both surprisingly taking the underdog, lowly Heat, quote unquote. Who, by the way, too, for the Nuggets, you face the 8 seed, the 5 seed, the 7 seed, and an 8 seed. So on paper, there's the benefits of getting the first overall seed, by the way, everybody. If anyone says why the regular season matters, there you go. It sets you up for a chance to play some pretty low seeds in the playoffs as well. Whereas the Heat
let's be honest, though.
This is not your
those last two 7 and 8 seed at the very end. They're not the easiest 7 and 8 seeds to be matched up against.
Not by any means, but on paper, that's why you want the 1 seed. Comparatively, the Heat have played a 1 seed, a 4 seed, a 2 seed, and now a 1 seed. So there's perks to being decent in the regular season. But anyway, that'll do it here for our main event. Looking ahead to the NBA Finals, we for one can't wait, and we know you'll be watching too. So we'll head over into Crunch Time, brought to you by Outlier, HighLowSports, outlier.bet /HighLowSports. Get yourself a free 7-day trial. To bet smarter, not harder. And I'm going to keep mine quick today. The Ultimate Fighter season 31 started last night, and the TV series has been kind of, for lack of a better term, struggling the last decade, honestly. Hasn't had quite the same allure. People don't quite tune in. This one I tuned in, gave it a look, and I'll say it's promising. The things that made the Ultimate Fighter great previously were, A, it was kind of a unique sport that people didn't know about. B, it capitalized on some of the reality TV show things like Big Brother, that sort of thing, too, that were really hot at the time as well. And C, it was like free MMA on TV really as well too. And just all those things. How do you be a fighter? What goes into it is very niche, very people didn't know like how it goes. You're 31 seasons and people know how it goes. That type of TV series angle isn't quite the same. Plus you have like 4 other Finding Fighter internet series as well too. And most of the time, the best fighters are going to get found even before this. Isn't like you're finding diamonds in the rough like it used to be at this point. Now you're kind of loading the roster. What they did this year is they got half of the roster's prospects, guys who are looking to make their name. The other half of the contestants are actually guys who have fought in the UFC before but got cut for one reason or another. A couple of them are actually previous Ultimate Fighter winners. So it's vets first prospects. I think that's a fun twist and unique feel to it as well. Plus, it has the one thing that every season needs. It needs to have coaches that people give a you-know-what about. Doesn't mean they have to be champions. Doesn't mean they have to be the best in the world. They just have to be captivating at some point. My favorite season of all time was John Jones and Chael Sonnen. That one was, when you look at the fighters from that one, pretty good set that came out of it. They didn't even talk trash the entire time. They were actually very respectful, but it was compelling, just those two personalities. So here you have Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler. They fit perfectly. Conor McGregor, obviously, as compelling as it gets. You don't need that every single time, just like you don't need a world champion to coach every single time, but finding a compelling coach and a compelling storyline with the fighters, because fighting is a very individualistic sport. You get invested in that one person. If you have no investment to them, it can be sometimes harder to get into. In this situation, these are all, for lack of better terms, nobodies except for to the local regional scenes. So having something like this, someone they're invested in as a coach, get invested in their team and their fighter, then you watch through. It gets interesting at that point. So this one has a good idea to kind of bring a little bit of hype back to the show, which, by the way, too, they don't need to do the show every year or multiple times a year. They should treat this one like how sports fans want the EA Sports to treat Madden. We don't need one every year. We just need you to get it right every couple of years. So if you released it every 2 years, but it was right, we'd be fine. Just give us a roster update. And then if the Ultimate Fighter does something like this every couple of years, finds the right coaching matchup, the right set of prospects, something like this, it could kind of bring a little bit of life back to it. I'm actually intrigued, so I'll definitely be watching episode 2 and watching forward to see how it goes. Because as long as every fight's not going to end in 11 seconds like the first episode did. We waited 55 minutes and threw 9 commercials to see a Vine. So hopefully the rest of the season doesn't quite go like that.
Hey, that was a fantastic 9-punch sequence, though.
Yeah, I mean, 6 of them, the guy was already dead. But I digress. But so definitely I'm going to be keeping an eye on it as well, too. And I think they might have found a formula to keep it a little a little bit interesting, at least for this season. I'm curious to see if they keep doing it or if they just start trying to pump them out like they did for a while there.
I mean, Conor McGregor seems to be the ultimate formula for the UFC at this point in time.
If you need eyes, he's the guy to do it as well too. So he's the end all be all. He's the ultimate. He's the big red button, and they picked a good time to break it out. But that'll do it here for the High Low Sports Podcast. We appreciate y'all joining us here on NBA Finals Eve, or if you're catching us on one of your favorite podcast apps as well too. We look forward to seeing you guys again next week to talk about a little bit of everything in the wide world of sports.